Welcome to the Narcissist Slayers, a podcast focusing on recovery from narcissistic abuse. I'm your co-host, Hope J.
And I'm your co-host, Lynn Catalano.
And we are both survivors of narcissistic abuse. I am also an attorney working with survivors of narcissistic abuse and the founder and president of the Center for Hope of Western New York.
I'm an attorney, a narcissistic abuse coach, and the author of Wrecking Ball Relationships: How to Identify, Live With, or Leave the Narcissist in Your Life. Learn more about me at lynncatalano.com.
At the Center for Hope, we offer hope, help, and healing from narcissistic abuse. We are a nonprofit organization with a mission to provide legal advocacy, mental health support, financial advisement, and holistic healing services to help you down the path from victim to survivor.
You can find out more about our services by checking out our website, centerforhopewny.org. And please follow us on all platforms of social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Center for Hope WNY for helpful information about recovery from narcissistic abuse.
Welcome back to the Narcissist Slayers. I'm your co-host, Hope J.
And I'm Lynn Catalano.
And today we are going to delve into a topic that is often not covered in podcasts that are devoted to narcissistic abuse. And Lynn and I were talking about this before we started recording today, and I'm not sure why it's not talked about very often, but we just so happen to have Lynn here with us, and she happens to be an expert in this topic. So I think that we're going to have a really good conversation today.
Agreed.
And we want to talk about toxic work environments and how people who are working for, and again, we don't diagnose people on this podcast,
Nope.
but if you happen to be employed by a person who demonstrates narcissistic traits, the traits are going to be the same across the board. It's going to, you're going to see the same things that we've been talking about in all our other podcasts, the same types of emotional abuse and manipulation that happens in the context of interpersonal relationships. But now it's happening at your job. And even more unfortunately, if you happen to be employed by this person, a person with these sorts of traits, and they happen to be your boss, it can cause all kinds of issues in the work environment as well. So I'd like to kind of turn it over to Lynn, because Lynn's going to share with our audience today how she became an expert in this topic and why this topic has interested her and the sorts of things that she's been doing with people in the community. And then we're going to delve into, first of all, how you recognize when you have a toxic boss or you're in a toxic work environment. And then secondarily, what can people do when they find themselves in that situation? So
Absolutely. Well, it's the kind of thing where I feel like I guess you could academically know what a toxic work environment is. You can certainly figure out, what the components are. But for me, I didn't know what the definition was. I just knew that something wasn't right. I knew something wasn't normal. And while I was in my second toxic work environment, I was completing my book, Wrecking Ball Relationships. And so I was writing that evenings and weekends, and I was coming into work, and here I had all these encounters with the CEO of the organization, and it was like a light bulb moment. And I thought, this person is suffering from narcissistic personality disorder. It's just interesting. The way that it manifests in the workplace is just slightly different than the way it manifests in a interpersonal relationship. But I ended up writing a whole chapter about it in my book because I think it is so important. And I've had the pleasure to speak to many organizations about how to prevent a toxic workplace from occurring for them. And much of that involves high amounts of emotional intelligence. It's about leading with emotional intelligence, and it's about working together as coworkers in a team environment. I mean, listen, emotional intelligence does all kinds of things to a work environment. You have better relationships. It increases your team effectiveness. It's just better overall. And people have long looked to that as the antidote to a toxic workplace. But, Hope, for me, I narrowed it down to 10 red flags. And I feel like if you can see any of these red flags in either your boss, your supervisor, or the president, or perhaps not our current president, by the way. I'm sorry.
Any president,
pick one.
any CEO.
Yeah, any CEO.
Yep.
But also it could be a coworker. And so the strategies will help you regardless of who that is in the workplace.
Right.
Okay. So these are my 10 red flags. So number one, they don't take responsibility for their actions, no matter what. Okay, no matter big or small. And this is one that they share with people who suffer from narcissistic personality disorder in interpersonal relationships. They literally will throw anyone under the bus.
Right.
It is never their fault. It's always someone else's. I had a boss, he literally would pivot every time something went wrong. And what would happen is he would say, oh, that's that person's fault.
Right.
That wasn't my fault. So he was literally driving the bus. He wasn't just throwing people under the bus.
Right. Right.
So you need to be aware of that.
And so, I mean, isn't that you especially younger people, right? It's their first experience in a professional work environment.
Yeah.
And we have an expectation, probably a lot of people do, that a boss is going to sort of function as a mentor, right? As somebody that's going to be invested in your growth and want to see you do well and encourage you to do well. So when you encounter somebody like this, I mean, it's really soul crushing, because not only are they not investing in your professional growth, but they're, when they say, and I use this colloquialism, right? The shit rolls downhill. I mean, it's really rolling downhill when your boss has these sorts of traits, because it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault, and you may be finding yourself in a situation where you weren't even involved, or you were involved very peripherally, and suddenly they're throwing that at you, and you're in a room where you're trying to take responsibility, having to take responsibility for something that you weren't even involved in.
I mean, listen, in the perfect world, we all want to go to work as a young person and have that mentor, and have that relationship where you're learning. But like, I can tell you, the toxic work environment before my last, the first one, I was hired by someone who was 69 years old. I expected a mentor. I expected that he would be doing this job for another 2 to 3 years, and then that I would be training, like apprenticing in this role to learn the ins and outs. Only I got there and I realized he didn't want me there. The board forced him to hire me as part of the succession plan that he didn't want. And so what did he do? He punished me by never giving me any real work to do. So they were paying me a good amount of money, but again, it was the golden handcuffs where I didn't know what to do. Like, I had now given up everything, put all my eggs in this basket, and this person wouldn't even take me to a meeting.
Well, I mean, I think that for you, that's a good example, but I think for a lot of people, particularly if it's a new job, or, they're worried about how it's going to look on their resume. They're worried about getting a reference from this person. It's golden handcuffs, but also you feel kind of paralyzed because you don't, this person has authority over you.
Control.
I mean, you can find that, interestingly, I think maybe even young people may experience this in university environments with a professor, or in some other way where, someone in a power position is, again, abusing power and control, because that's, we talk about this all the time, but it's power and control. So avoiding responsibility, blame shifting is kind of what you just talked about. What are some other red flags, Lynn?
So they avoid conflict at all costs. They literally will have someone else do the firing.
Do the dirty work,
Yes. They are always the smartest person in the room, and no one can contradict that. They love consensus. They hate conflict. It's funny because people who are not narcissistic encourage healthy debate. They want people to challenge the status quo, right? They want new voices. That's like, they want diversity around the table. Narcissists don't. Toxic bosses don't. They want yes people. They want a rubber stamp.
And they also, I think, when you talk about challenging, I can give an example. And again, this is, I'm just thinking about, and I'm not going to name the people because I don't want, obviously, them to have any fallout from maybe it's something here in this, but, you're around the table and your narcissist boss is presiding over a group discussion where, ostensibly they're trying to elicit, like you said, feedback, right? So because that's part of their job is they have different people that are working for them, and you're in a room in a conference table and trying to get that feedback. But whenever somebody says something that is not, that they don't agree with, or that may be in conflict with what they have already stated, they shut that person down.
Yes.
They shut that person down.
Yes.
They are not really, it's like all for show, right?
Never mind that. I've actually been part of a meeting around a board table where the CEO not only shut it down, then he proceeded to gaslight me on what had been said and done before. When I was there for the previous statement, and it was completely different than what he was now spinning. Yeah. Because the new reality suited his desires and wants and needs. So the more we're talking, the more, I'm starting to have this feeling of like what it feels like when you're in an interpersonal relationship with one of these people. It's awful.
But again, you're at work.
Yeah, it's awful.
So let's try and get through the red flags, because I really think, anyone who's listening to this particular podcast, they're probably in an environment that they feel is toxic. Yeah. They may not know what to do. They may feel paralyzed, for all of the reasons that we stated earlier. Yeah. I really want to get to the part about what can people do,
what can they do
to survive this, and or maybe give some encouragement to try to find ways to get out of it. Right. Okay.
So number 3, this one kills me because I witnessed my CEO doing this. They micromanage everyone. And I don't even know how do they sleep at night when they're doing everyone's job for them. Right. But like literally, I'm an attorney. I had 20 years experience when I came into this job, and he was telling me how to send an email. Yeah. And I was like, okay. And I didn't even write it down. Like, why would I need to write? Like, duh. Right. And so then he must have reminded me 3 times before I left his office. Then as I'm walking down the hall, he texts me to remind me to send the email. Then by the time I get back to my office, he's already emailed the person I was supposed to email to tell them it's coming. And I'm like, give me a break. Right. Like, give me a break. Not the right place for me at all. So number 4 is they don't communicate well or sometimes at all. And I think that this is really important. This is one of my red flags for people who suffer from NPD in general. Yeah. They change their mind quickly, and they're hypocrites. So that what once was an abomination to them is now perfectly acceptable for everyone. And so it's hard to keep track. It's hard to keep up because they're constantly shifting what they want to do. Right.
Moving the goalposts, I call that.
Moving the goalposts.
I call that when we talk about it in interpersonal relationships. But I think it also applies here. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Taking that one.
Okay.
Number 5, they assume that everyone's on call 24/7, no matter what your
role. Boundaries. No boundaries.
No. And no respect for any kind of personal time. I mean, this particular position I was in did not demand, nothing was an emergency. I was a professional fundraiser my whole career. I told my assistant when I first started at the very first job, there are no emergencies in fundraising. Yeah. Everything can wait until tomorrow. Everything can wait until Monday. And this CEO needed you to respond ASAP. Right. It's funny because number 6 that I have kind of correlates with number 5. He would text, call, email at all hours, evenings and weekends. Again, no boundaries, no respect. But he would be angry if he didn't get a response. Because again, I'm saying, I'm going to draw a boundary here. I'm not responding. This is not an emergency. Right. I will respond to you on Monday morning. But see, his ideas, he needed immediate, instant validation. Right. He needed everyone to know that his idea was a good one, and he couldn't wait until Monday morning. Okay. It's definitely like an emotional immaturity, and they are the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Your stuff is immaterial and doesn't matter.
So Lynn, I don't know if you're going to get to this, but I mean, I've been in these sort of environments, and one of the things that I realized about working in a place like that is, and it's very, very similar again to being in an interpersonal relationship with someone like this, is walking on eggshells all the time.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, you never know, because and when you talk about emotional immaturity, they also have, emotional dysregulation,
Yes.
and they're totally inappropriate at work.
Yes.
So, they explode on you, they rage on you, they do the silent treatment thing.
Yep.
You never know kind of where you stand with this person.
Yep.
You think, and you find yourself doing the same kinds of things. Like, I want to please this person. I want to do a good job for this person.
Yeah.
I want to make this person proud. Right.
Yeah.
And all you're getting back from them is all of this, same kind of roller coaster ride in the work environment.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have that as an example.
I don't, but it's funny because the last organization that I worked for, where the CEO was a raging narcissist,
right.
Employees, more than one employee said to me, I've never been in an organization where I have been stabbed in the back more. And it's because they are the role model. You talk about shit rolls downhill. Yeah. They're the role model, so they're
creating the cultural
environment. They create that culture.
Right, yeah.
And so literally this CEO, his motto could have been, everyone is replaceable.
Right.
No one matters. I can replace everyone very quickly. And I'm going to get to number 10. I'm going to skip to number 10, but I still have 7, 8, 9. But number 10 is they completely ignore turnovers. Like, they literally don't care how many people are leaving. So when I got there, like the director of quality, which is kind of important in a hospital, you might say, literally there had been like 13 in 8 years. And you scratch your head and you go, what? Why are people leaving less than a year that they've been in the organization? Yeah. Turnovers were at 25%. The HR person who pointed that out at the board meeting was there less than a year.
Yeah.
Because he pointed it out, right?
So yes, turnover.
Any
environment that I've been in where I've had a boss like this, and other people I know who are in these environments, by the time you're so beaten down, and you see the way people are being treated, you're looking for an escape plan.
Yes,
you're looking,
to.
Some people can't, some people don't have that option.
Right.
But if you're lucky enough to be able to, find another option,
move on.
And I think that explains the turnover.
Yes.
So we're about at 16 minutes. So
I'm going. I
want to get through this so that we can get to some solutions.
Okay. Last 3. They don't plan. They just react. So literally, I compared this to the most psychotic game of, oh my God. Well, that ruined it, doesn't it?
But,
pivoting. It was like Tokey Pokey. Oh my God, I couldn't remember that. So because every time we did something, the CEO would pivot. That didn't work. Threw somebody under the bus, and we moved to the next thing. So it's like everyone's marching left, and he automatically goes, no. That person screwed it up. We're going right now.
Okay.
And we all turn around and go right. So there's no plan. There's no strategic plan.
That's tough.
They focus on short-term optics instead of long-term solutions.
That is also so insightful.
Oh, They will put a fresh coat of paint on something and take photographs and do a press release.
Well, again, because it's an interesting, about impression management, right? That's the same.
It's
the same
image.
thing. It's image impression
over
management.
Everything,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They also will give very harsh criticism without any coaching.
Right.
They don't want you to get better.
They don't want you to get better.
So they're just going to tell you everything you did wrong.
Yeah.
But they're never going to tell you how to do it right. Which is what a leader who has high emotional intelligence will do, right? They show empathy.
You know that you're in a toxic environment when that's the kind of thing that happens every day.
Yes.
They walk in with a criticism, and then it kind of sets the tone for the day. Or, they criticize you, like I said earlier, in that group conference in front of other people. They love to do that, drop that bomb. And then you're sitting there feeling like your stomach is sinking and you're embarrassed and you're ashamed. Humiliated. And then they walk on and they go on like it didn't even happen.
Yep. So what do you do?
Okay, yes. What do you do, Lynn?
What do you do?
How do you get, let's try and be empathetic, I think, to the people who maybe they've recognized that they're in a toxic work environment, but they're stuck for some reason. Like I said earlier, they're the primary breadwinner, they're a single mom or single dad, you know, they carry the health insurance. How is there ways, you know, that we can help them to manage a person like this?
Yeah. So, number one, change your, I'm sorry. I have a method. It's just 3 quick steps, and it's silly. I named it, but it's the David Bowie Rolling Stones method. Okay. To rise above the chaos.
Okay.
And so basically the first step is change, right? David Bowie, change your approach. Okay. So they have a way of communicating. You know, it's not a good way. It's not necessarily a positive way, but embrace it. Stop challenging it.
Right.
So, you know, if they're going to tell you that they only like doing Zoom meetings and you want to meet in person, no.
Right.
Do what they want to do, or vice versa. However they want to do it, embrace their communication style. Second step is really change your perspective.
Yes, that's so important, right?
You know, you have to understand that these people are rooted in deep insecurity.
Yeah.
And I know that doesn't make you feel better when they're humiliating you in front of a group.
No.
But you need to realize
it's all about them and not about you.
It is, and it's just never going to be about you. And that's why I tell you it's not necessarily sustainable for the long haul.
Right.
And you get that, right? And then number 3 is really, it's about, you can't always get what you want, but you might just find you get what you need. So, you know, when you are in this type of work environment, you need to do things to protect yourself. So I tell people, you know, please document everything that happens, no matter what. I was a big fan of notes to file. Like I would just type myself a note or send myself an email, because then it's contemporaneous, it's dated, time-stamped. Attorneys love that stuff.
Yeah.
And you're saying, you know, I was in a meeting and this is what happened. And just send it to yourself, send it to your personal email, and leave it there. I don't know if you'll ever need that. It's just good to have in the time that it occurred. Also, figure out what human resources is in your organization. Now, I know for a fact, human resources in my last organization was a joke, because the CEO was just going to keep removing the director of human resources.
I mean, and isn't that the thing, right? I mean, I think a lot of times, you know, like you said, the environment, like the culture of the workplace, the tyrant at the top, you know, everyone that's underneath them, everyone's walking on eggshells. So it's not, you may get some sympathy or some empathy, but I think part of the problem is they've been indoctrinated into this culture for so long. Like I see this happen. The people that are there long term and have figured out how to survive, you know, they know what's going on, but because they've made the decision to stay, they're not going to help you. Right? They're not.
It's every man for himself.
Right.
Believe that is a sinking ship that you are in, and people are counting the days until they can retire or transfer somewhere else or get out.
Right.
And so really it's very difficult to find an ally in that type of organization. It is,
because people they're worried about their own job security, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not that I don't think, you know, a lot of times people that are in that environment, they've adapted, just like you do in a relationship, in an interpersonal relationship. You kind of, you try to figure out how to walk around that person, how to cater to that person, how to change your behavior to survive in the environment.
Because they're never going to change.
Right.
And the other thing is, and I tell my clients this in interpersonal relationships as well, but I think it's applicable here, is that you need to sit down and list your 10 wants of what you want out of this position.
Yes.
And then narrow that down to 5 must-haves. And if one of your must-haves is, you know, like some kind of autonomy, or the fact that you want to be recognized or rewarded at work. I mean, these are things you're just never going to get from a narcissist. No. And so you need to realize that and really determine then if you should stay or go. I will tell you that these types of relationships affect your emotional, your mental, and your physical health, no matter where they occur. So it's not just interpersonal. Right. If you let this get to you, this will affect you, and you will take it home to your family. And so
it's like poison. You absorb it. So if you're a person who who's, kind of realized that this is who you're dealing with. This is your boss. This is the environment. Like, you've been listening to this. You're like, check, check, right?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that I've given this advice to other people. I did this myself when I've been in these environments, is I think it's really important for you to decide what it is that you need to get out of this. Like, let's say this is just a stepping stone for you.
Yes.
You're in an entry level position.
Yes.
You need to get work experience.
Yes.
You need to, there's certain things that you want to get out of this experience and then go. You kind of, put the blinders on, understand and recognize all the things that Lynn just described, realize it's not about you. Try to kind of use what we talk about, the gray rock technique. We have a whole episode on gray rock, but use the same technique at work, I would think.
Yes. And draw boundaries, like create your own boundaries, because they're there to protect you. Boundaries are your personal limits and your personal rules. No one gets to tell you they're wrong. However, just know that they're probably not going to respect them.
They're not.
But so when your boss, one of those examples I gave you, texts and emails on weekends and expects an answer in evenings, draw the boundary. Make it answer when you are deemed acceptable to answer, but do it respectfully. Be professional.
Right.
Don't be snarky at all. Maintain your level of professionalism at all times.
That's really good, because they're gonna bait you.
Yep.
They bait you. Yeah. They bait you like a toddler.
Yep.
They want you to come down to their level. They want the emotional reaction. It's no different. Again, it's very, very similar to when you're in an interpersonal relationship with this person.
Yes.
But it's so much more important, even in a work environment, that you don't come down to their level, because if you can kind of hold out until you get what you need from this position and move on.
Yes.
If this is an important person in the community and you need to want to use them as a reference, you don't want to burn the bridges.
Right.
I think that's
that's
the advice that I always give people.
Yep.
Because if you stoop down to their level, then you're going to burn the bridge, and not only that, they're your boss. You're going to lose.
Yep. You're going to lose every time.
Right. So,
and I do tell people, it is important to talk to someone, because you have to figure out how to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
And so in this type of situation, I think it helps immensely to speak with someone who has suffered similarly.
Yes.
And that's where I coach people. I've actually coached many people who have been in toxic work environments and want to know, how do I get through this?
Yeah.
How can I protect myself? And also, please practice self-care. In this situation, it is so important when you're in a toxic relationship. You need to figure out how to work out your rage. And that, talking to someone, exercising. I love kickboxing, because to me that was a really great way to get it out. But so is meditation and prayer, etc. But I do think it's important to speak with someone.
So ultimately, Lynn, I mean, it sounds like, we help people today to kind of recognize the red flags and to figure out, the behaviors that are sort of, this is what I'm dealing with at work.
Yes.
We've given some suggestions of how to kind of deal with it while you're there.
Yes.
But I think ultimately, the advice is move on,
Yes.
right?
You have to.
Yeah. If you can, move on, because this is not a healthy, it's a toxic place to be in. You're not going to change your boss. He's going to go on, or she's going to go on to be, just as abusive to new hires and the people who stay there. They've found a way to accept it and live with it. That is a choice. That is an option.
Yeah.
But I think, again, it's kind of like it's similar to like going no contact with a narcissist in your interpersonal life. You probably want to find a plan or find a way to get to that place in your professional life as well. So with that, we're going to say goodbye for today, and we will see you on the next episode of the Narcissist Slayers.